Daniel,
What's up?
we're done with Caliban's War.
Correct.
Not to be confused with Leviathan Wakes.
Wow, that was quite a book.
Imagine how it's going to be when we get to Abaddon's Gate and I have three names I'm mixing up.
Caliviathan's Gate. There you go.
Okay,
Caliviathan's Gate.
so welcome to the Sad Boys Book Club. My name's Dusty.
And I'm Daniel.
I want to get this out of the way immediately. Spoilers for the last page of the book. I really just want to get this out of the way immediately. Holy fucking shit, Miller is back.
Miller is back, folks. We are on Miller Watch. It's Miller time.
This ain't Miller Light. This is the full Moxie.
Yes, you're getting full fat.
All the calories.
Miller. All the calories with some extra blue stuff in there, too.
And you know what? When I read that, I did the hops. This is funny because I don't drink beer.
No, this is the attempt of two guys who don't drink alcohol attempting to do a how do you do, fellow kids?
How do you do, fellow alcoholics? Okay. So I gotta kind of pull the curtain back a little here, and I gotta admit something to you. And I've been waiting a month to tell you this. So I made a mistake.
What'd you do?
So, as I do, because as I've mentioned in the past, I use this app called Bookly to like track my stats with my reading and all that fun stuff. So what I do when I start a book, and I also do this, I did this before I started using Bookly. I did this when I still use this. I have an Excel spreadsheet. I think I showed you back when I made it back in 2021 that I use to keep track of the books that I read every year. Yeah, I'll have like information like the genre, the author, if it's in a series, how many pages are in it, the day I started it, the day I finished it, and my rating for it. You know, just fun information for me. So yeah, the first thing I'll do when I'm about to start a book is I'll crack open the back of it and see what number the last page is, so I can put in the number of pages.
No.
And my eyes just got locked onto "We gotta talk," Detective Miller said, and I was like,
no.
Oh.
That's so sad. That's such a cool reveal. And it got spoiled.
It did. It's my fault. I did it to myself.
Well, the thing is, at least there's not a lot of preamble to it or like lead up, so it's not like you like ruined a subplot or anything, but it is nevertheless a very cool and interesting reveal.
Yeah, and you know what makes this even funnier too is I was talking to my brother the other day, and he watched the show. He watched the first three. He watched the first 3 seasons of the show, and we were talking about it. And Thomas Jane plays Miller in the show, and I was like, man, I can't believe that Tom Jane plays Miller. That's just great casting in my opinion. And my brother was like, yeah, he's so great in the first 3 seasons. And each season is a book, and thankfully he's only watched the first 3 seasons. So I'm sorry, I'm pretty confident Miller's going to be in Abaddon's Gate, by the way. Going off of the final page of Caliban's War, I'm pretty confident he's going to be in Abaddon's Gate, at least a little bit.
Yeah, Abaddon's Gate's probably going to pick up pretty much like, whoa, you're back, oh my gosh,
Yeah. So, anyways, he's only seen the first 3 seasons. So, what's basically the first 3 books. And
why'd he stop?
I don't know. But, like, yeah, so he just says that to me. I'm like, man, you're so lucky I accidentally spoiled the last page of Caliban's War for myself, because I'd be so pissed at you right now if you just said that to me and I didn't know that Miller came back.
Yeah, that would have been an even worse way to get spoiled.
Yeah. So I had to play dumb the entire time we've been recording here, and just not hint at the fact that he's coming back, despite the fact that I have made it perfectly clear throughout the entirety of Leviathan Wakes, and when it's come up during us talking about Caliban's War, that he's my favorite character.
You definitely made that clear. One thing that I think is to your favor here is that, like I said, there was not any like subplots or really many. There are mentions of him, but only insofar as how he may have influenced Holden, but not any directly related to him subplots. So it was a true like cold splash of water, no context. So fortunately, you didn't have to dance around anything like that.
Yeah, but that being said, I'm bummed that I was spoiled to it. But it's not it's not the worst thing ever, because all it spoils is the setup for book 3. And not like anything about book 2 itself, so I can kind of live with it. It's whatever. I'm bummed, but it's, you know, it happens. But oh my freaking goodness, Daniel, I'm so excited for Abaddon's Gate. My God.
You know what? You want to hear something?
Huh?
Let's lock it in. Let's do Abaddon's Gate.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. Lock it in.
Ooh, I mean, we're not doing it next. I mean, I can tell you that right now.
We have something planned that I am actually really, really excited for.
I was about to say, Daniel, I went and bought the book today. I'm not changing it to Abaddon. I don't own Abaddon's Gate yet, but I own the book that you told me we're doing next month, or I guess technically this month.
I'm not saying that we skip right to it. I'm just saying lock it in. We're doing Abaddon's Gate.
Oh man, Caliban's War was so good.
It was good. I guess I'll give some opening thoughts. I'll use this to transition into some opening thoughts here. So, long-time listeners will...
First-time callers.
Long-time listeners and first-time callers will remember I was not the biggest fan of Leviathan's Wake. Leviathan Wakes. There we go. See, I wasn't. I wasn't an unfan of it, but it was just like there was a lot of it that I just didn't hit with me, and I was just kind of left with a generally positive but fairly lukewarm sense walking away from it. Like I could have walked away and just been like, I'm good, you know, like that's a good enough ending for me.
But unfortunately, you're friends with me.
Well, I would say fortunately in this case, because I quite enjoyed Caliban's War. This is not so very. I think generally speaking, they did improve on a lot of their the writing things. There's not as much. How much there's not quite as literary as I would hope, but nevertheless, the story is I would say is better than Leviathan Wakes. There's the writing, generally speaking, the character writing, it was better. There was a few like awkward, what we would later come to call Whedonisms or Marvel quips kind of moments, but I can almost forgive that because it was contemporaneous with when that was forming, so I can't come down too hard on it. It was very good. It was very, very good. The plot was like really cooking. The characters this time around, I've moved from strong anti-Holden to Holden neutral. Maybe slight like.
You Avasaralid.
Yes, I Avasaralid. Her arc with Holden was essentially the same as mine.
Yeah.
I liked the new characters.
Character, by the way.
Yeah. My one semi critique is I feel like they didn't do as much with Bobby as they could have. I came away from this book, despite its length, feeling like I don't really know that much about her, despite being a point of view character. Basically, what the combined unit that forms James S.A. Corey, all that they really communicated was she's big, she's a serious soldier, but she can like joke around a little bit, and she is very attractive. That's basically all that I got out of their description of her. So I'm a little disappointed in that, but nevertheless, she had some interesting, fun moments. She had some of the best action sequences. I don't know, nothing really negative, but I just wish there was more there. The Holden, like I said, came around on him a lot. Avasarala, very interesting character. Gave a lot of life and a lot of vibrancy to the politics, which can be a tricky thing for writers to nail. I mean, politics are like the politics stuff is interesting to me and to Dust. This is a very pro in-world politics podcast, but nevertheless, some writers don't quite stick the landing there, and it can come off as like elder, the council talking in room scenes that just don't really land. The character of Avasarala, especially, she has a lot of vibrancy. She has a lot of like real spunk, and she's a lot of fun to watch her kind of game the system. So lots of points there. And I think that does. Prax, our other point of view character, kind of a non-entity too. If I'm going to be honest, but not. The thing is, if I almost am more forgiving towards that, because it feels like he was not necessarily meant to be like. I don't know how quite to put this, but
he's a conduit that drives the plot forward more than a character.
Yes, I think that's a very good way to put it. He was almost a plot device more than he was an actual character, but that is unfortunate when he is the point of view character in some sequences. So,
yeah,
this is starting to sound more negative than I mean it. I came away from the book very excited. Like I said, I'm locking in Abaddon's Gate. But those are just a couple things that just to cross them off at the top, and I'm sure as we get to go through the rest, we will continue to sing the praises of this book, because it really is a very good book. Just wanted to point out a couple things that I was thinking about as we wrapped up.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Kind of. I guess I'll go more into this when we give final thoughts, but I feel like this book objectively is better than Leviathan Wakes, but I will say, when I finished it, I found myself like it didn't hit me quite as hard as Leviathan Wakes did, and I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the book. I think what it is that because Leviathan Wakes was the first one, it was my introduction to the world and these characters. Everything was so exciting and so new, so everything was kind of magnified because of that. Whereas with this one, while it's technically better, I feel I'm already established in this world, in this universe with these characters. So like that shiny new car smell is kind of gone, if that makes sense.
Might I posit another reason?
The car is better than ever, but it doesn't smell new anymore. So it's like that dopamine hit, I guess, is a little diminished. I don't know. Does that make sense? Kind of how what I'm getting at.
I kind of understand what you're saying, but generally for me, better is always better. But I can understand the novelty factor. But could I posit another reason why it maybe didn't hit as hard for you?
Commander Miller, Detective Miller.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was going to say
that's part of it too.
Your favorite character was not in this book. So I mean, while the rest of the book was really good, you were kind of missing that initial hook, that initial flavor that like got you on board.
Yeah, that might be part of it too. But I mean, like, I'll just go and I'll reiterate this again later. But like, we're talking the difference of I gave Leviathan Wakes a 10 out of 10 for me. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. That's really what the difference is.
Jumping right to the rating.
Yeah, I guess I'll go more into it later. But just to kind of like give you a more visual idea of what I mean for like how this book feels to me, despite it being, like I said, the better book of the two.
Yeah. I wonder this is like we're talking years down the road kind of thing here. If you were to, you let's say you read through the series, you read all the side content, the short stories and all whatnot, and you go to reread this in 5-10 years. I wonder what your thoughts on Leviathan Wakes is going to be. Is it still going to hit the same? I'm sure you're still going to enjoy it, of course, but is it still going to be like that 10? Does this become the 10 and that become the 9? I don't know. That'd be long term. I wonder if they would not switch places.
I mean, hell, it might, like, down the line, like in a month or a week or something, I might be like, actually, I do think that Leviathan Wakes would be the 9 and Caliban's War would be the 10 in this situation. But it's just, as it stands right now, it's by no means a discredit to either book, because it's just, you always remember your first,
Of course.
But yeah, this, man, I'm already feeling a little bit of book hangover for this one.
Yeah. I almost. I don't want to. I know we're trying to get into the covering the book itself, but there is a strong part of me that wants to just jump right into Abaddon's Gate, because it was just such a good experience here. But I don't know. I'm very excited about what we have coming up next month. But
I'll be honest.
Man,
if you didn't lock it in there, I was honestly considering buying a copy soon and just reading it on my own, and just being like, "Sorry, dude, I gotta read it." But if you're locking it in, I'll wait. I waited a year for Caliban's War. I can wait however long it's gonna be between us reading this and Abaddon's Gate.
We'll see. It doesn't necessarily have to be a year. It might, but let's look at what we've got coming up, and maybe we can work it in.
Yeah.
All right. With that, are you ready to get into it?
Yeah. So I want to kind of move really quickly through this, because I feel like, oddly enough, I can say not a huge amount happens in this final quarter here. So we ended off the last time with Avasarala, for lack of a better term, confronting Ehrenreich over the protomolecule soldiers, and then her learning that the destroyers are now heading right back toward the Rocinante to destroy them, despite her being on the ship. And I couldn't help throughout a lot of this final quarter thinking about what you were talking about last time, with everything being wrapped up too quickly and too neatly. I've honestly been waiting for you to say the same thing for this entire quarter.
Well, there is some aspect of it, but the thing is, it's just, when you're kind of at the end, at the finish line, it's not necessarily more understandable, but it's just one of those situations where it's kind of like it's inevitable,
Yeah.
Whereas with the other things, it's like if they would have introduced them at a different time, or under certain different circumstances, or just gave them more breathing room, then I think those plot points would have popped a little more. The thing is, at this point, we ran out of time, so it's a little bit more, and especially when you're writing or reading or anything, like the last quarter of the book, the last few episodes of the season, the last few levels of the game, there's a heightened pace that is expected and accommodated for just based on like cultural expectation, so it doesn't really register quite as much.
Yeah, I found it interesting that, like, basically every single problem, every single challenge that was set in front of them in this final quarter was solved either in the chapter that it was established or in the following chapter. And, like, I don't mind, because like you said, we're wrapping up here. It's kind of closing off. We know who the players are, we know where the pieces are, and we know kind of what the goal is. And now it's like we're just kind of getting the last couple of obstacles between the crew and that goal, which that goal being May. We're getting just kind of like the last ditch obstacles that are being placed in front of them in order to get to May. So like it's not like it's like, you know, they get to Io and Wynn's fleet is just sitting out in front of there, and you're like, wait a minute, why is his fleet sitting there? That doesn't make sense. This wasn't established. It's not anything like that. It's like, okay, yeah, so this is what's happening now. So like, it's just, you know, I was reading it. I just couldn't help but think to myself, like, yeah, this is very much a kind of set 'em up, knock 'em down kind of finale we got going on here, because even starting with the ships coming back to destroy the Rocinante, like the very next chapter, the first chapter we read this week, it was basically, yeah, so these ships are coming, what are we gonna do? Oh, well, Bobby's like, oh, well, hey, there are 6 Mars ships following the UN ships. Why don't we ask them for help? And Officer Alla's like, I mean, will that work? And she's like, well, it can't hurt to try. So they ask, and they say yes. So the Mars ships help them out, and then they all just fight. And then the Mars ships and the Rocinante win. They win the battle. So that's problem solved. And it's like, it's fine. I'm not saying this like to complain or like say anything's bad. It's just that's what happens.
Well, I don't want to. I hope we're not reversing our positions here, but I will say in that instance, it's a little bit more acceptable because you, at least in my opinion, you don't want to like have a like spaceship chase go on forever and ever in a book. I think that would be, if it was not something that was like well handled, could just be like, okay. Yeah. You would lose your sense of stakes if it like takes forever to resolve. So I can kind of understand and appreciate like, and they had to squeeze in a space battle. So I can kind of appreciate how they wrapped that up.
Yeah.
But other things I tend to agree still. But you know, I just on that one it makes sense to me more or less how they handled it.
No, like, yeah, I get it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing by any means here. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like, and then this happened, and so then now this happened to do it. It's just going back to what I said with how they just kind of set up the next issue and then solve it within the next chapter. And once again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just that's just kind of the pacing of this final section here. That's really all I'm saying, is that's the pacing. So they get that figured out. You know, them and Mars team up. They're able to take out the UN ships, at least enough to get them to surrender. And so then now them and the Mars destroyers, the Donager class destroyers, are heading to Io. So they get to Io, and now Wynn and his fleet are there. So yeah, Officer Ralla at this point has contacted the Sergeant General, and given him the rundown and said basically, hey, either, you know, choose the right side of history or deal with the consequences of basically destroying humanity. And he has politically sided with her, which means that Aaron Wright is out, and now she has some help in the form of some UN fleet coming to meet them as well. So by the time they make it to Io, there is a bit of the UN fleet there with them as well. So with that taken care of, now it's like this weird kind of standoff where it's the UN, Mars, and the Rocinante facing down against what is now, because it is politically dangerous to side with Wynn, and is now considered a rogue faction of the UN on Io. And so we have this standoff where it's like are they gonna fight? Is this gonna be this big battle where it's like friend and foe kind of like intermingling, and this whole mess of like what's gonna be, who's gonna be shooting at who, how's this gonna go? It basically just turns into a lot of just kind of scrambling around as loyalties just kind of keep jumping back and forth until it is made perfectly clear that, hey, you're either with Avasarala, and it's Souther who is the guy that's leading the UN with Avasarala, her friend Souther. It's either you're with him or you're now a rogue element of the UN. So all but Wynn's ship, the Agatha King, has betrayed him, for lack of a better term.
Well, that was an interesting sequence. Like, it was very, very well realized. Like, the idea of, like, you could basically hear like the confused con chatter of like, trying to figure out who has authority here, and it was really, really kind of interesting. We don't have to like get into the like all of that, but I just want to just highlight for any people that haven't read it, or I don't know, people that want to read it. It's a really fun sequence.
Yeah, and it's all done basically through like the imagery of it is through like IFF indicators on their radar system, and then like changing color based on their allegiance. So just a fun little visual thing to go along with it. But yeah, it's that problem's almost immediately solved because the UN's basically just like, hey, are you still part of the UN or are you betraying the largest military body in the universe? And people are like, oh yeah, no, we're still the good guys here. Yes. That fuck that dude. So he's just kind of left on his own. But then they what he does in response is he launches like 20 or like a couple dozen protomolecule soldiers in orbit at Mars, like well in the direction of Mars. Think like when Aerostation was like careening towards Earth at the end of Leviathan Wakes. Same kind of concept, but instead of it being an entire space station, it's just protomolecule dudes just kind of rocketing through space. And like I love the great irony in this situation of one of them hits the Agatha King and goes right into the ship because these guys can punch through ships apparently. And I just love the irony of I imagined he was just like, fire them all, go attack Mars. They'll see what it means to cross me. And then suddenly one of them just slams into his ship, and that's the only ship that gets hit with one. What a great little irony that was. Yes. So his ship is basically Aerostation 2.0. There's no saving it. That's it. The best they can do is quarantine it, but nobody's getting off that ship alive, basically, because they're going to be infected. However,
I will just throw out here. I don't want to derail us, but the infection progresses way faster than Aerostation. Yeah. And I think that's something that we should probably note and probably see how that goes, like moving forward into the series. But it's just like it's you see that they're the true evolution and weaponization of the protomolecule during the Agatha Christie portion.
Agatha King?
Or the Agatha King.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's a book podcast.
Yeah. I used to imagine Inspector, what's his name? Inspector Poirot?
Yes.
He's just like,
Poirot.
This protomolecule is very bad. Who stole the protomolecule? I will solve this mystery.
Someone on this ship has stolen the protomolecule.
Someone needs to get Kenneth Branagh on this immediately.
He'd probably do it. The guy, that's his like favorite thing to do is make Poirot movies, and the man has never turned down a paycheck.
Yeah, he was Arliss Loveless in Wild Wild West, and you know what? That's a great movie. I'll fight anyone, including Will Smith, who says otherwise. But anyways, so now that threat's basically taken care of. So now it's the question of we gotta go down onto Io, go into their lab, and get May if she's still alive. But we have a bit of a they break the first rule of D&D and they split the party again. They really like doing this. Holden's like, hey, so all the proto-molecule soldiers that they launched towards Mars, they have transponders on them, but wind turned them off. So someone has to go on to the Agatha King and get the transponder turned back on so that they can track and destroy the proto-molecules before they land on Mars. Because even one landing on Mars means ostensibly the planet's fucked. There's no coming back from this. Just one landing on there, so they got to destroy them all before they get there. So someone's got to go and get his transponder so that they can turn it back on, so that they can track the proto-molecule soldiers in orbit, or not in orbit, but in transit through space. And of course, who else but Holden is going to be the one to do this? But to be fair, his reasoning is like really sound. So he's like, Bobby needs to protect Prax and Amos while they go down to Io and get May. So Amos has to go because, you know, he's the muscle, he's the bodyguard basically. He's the, as he says, he's the last man standing. He's there to protect Prax. And Bobby's going because she's protecting Amos and Prax because she's got the armor, so she can handle a lot more than they can. And Prax is going because it would be a lot better for his daughter if he's the one that's there as well if they find her. So that's kind of covered. Naomi's got to be there to help assist them travel through the or at least at the moment they think that Naomi's the one that needs to be there so they can assist them through navigating the facility. That ends up being not necessary at all. But still, they don't know that at the time. Avasarala's got, you know, political things she's got to deal with. Alex has to drive a ship. So, and obviously, none of the Mars or UN people are going to do it. So all that leaves is Holden. And like he said, only 2 people survived Arrow Station, and I'm the only one that's left. So obviously, it has to be me.
That's right.
So Holden's got to go take care of that while Prax, Bobby, and Amos go rescue or find May, whatever it ends up being. I'm really dancing around it right now, even though I really don't need to. So then we have Holden going into the Agatha King and dealing with that situation. And it's once again, you know, like I said, we established the problem and it's solved within a chapter, which once again, not saying that as criticism, it's just the pacing of this final bit. But there's so much going on that once again, it just makes sense that you got to kind of, you know, like I said, set him up, knock him down. So he goes onto the ship, finds a dude that was hiding in a locker, which is very funny because, you know, when's the last time you heard of someone hiding in a locker while a proto-molecule outbreak happened on a ship, right?
History rhyming.
Yeah, you know, it's like poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that engineer whose name I have forgotten, it was like Lucas or it's something with an L. I don't know. I think he's the funniest character that James Corey has ever written.
If we can make him work, the book. I lost what was it? It was like he was a funnier character than we've ever had before. If we can make Jar Jar work, the whole movie works. It wasn't quite that. It was something like that.
We always go back to George. Like somehow we always find our way back to George.
One of the greatest and most confusing and confounding savants of American culture.
Yeah. But yeah, he finds this dude who was hiding in a locker, and he takes him along with him because he's like, "Hey, take me to the CIC." And dude's like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." As long, you know, he's like, "I'll get you out of here. Just take me there first." And he thinks that Holden's an admiral because he's got admiral override codes, which I find kind of funny. So as they go there, they get there pretty easily, all things considered. They pass by the galley, and it's completely filled with vomit zombies, and they are like smarter and stronger than they were on Arrows because, you know, evolution's a bitch. But they're able to get the elevator shaft open and make their way up to the CIC, where they find Admiral Wynn, who promptly gets shot directly in the throat by Holden after he's like, you gotta save me, like, oh, either that or you're not getting shit. And then Holden's like, okay, and just shoots him. And I really love the line that, like, in the back of his brainstem, Commander Miller, why do I keep saying Commander Miller? What's wrong with me? In the back of his brainstem, Detective Miller nodded in approval, and I thought that was really funny.
That was funny.
So he takes him out really quickly, really easily, not a problem whatsoever. He gets his hand terminal, and the transponders are turned back on. So yay, that problem is solved. However, the poor engineer guy, his suit was ripped while he was trying to open the elevator, and he got some vomit zombie goo on him. So he's a dead man walking, and somebody has to stay behind and press the scuttle button to detonate the ship. There's no countdown timer, because what's the point of a countdown timer if the enemies can come and defuse it anyways? So someone has to stay and push the button and go down with the ship, and the dude's like, I'm a dead man anyways, so I'll do it. You just get out of here. So Holden makes it back to... He uses the Razorback to get here, by the way. It's not really super important, but I just wanted to just point that out. He makes it back to the Razorback with only a little bit of radiation poisoning, maybe. Or maybe not, I don't know. Just a little bit of radiation, that's all.
Well, that's something we also need to track, because it mentions Naomi, when she's voicing her concerns about this plan in general. She's like, okay, dude, but seriously, you can't keep irradiating yourself. Eventually, something bad is going to happen. So that's something that we should keep an eye on. I bet maybe not Abaddon's Gate, but maybe like a subsequent book. I think it's eventually gonna pop up there.
It very well could. So yeah, he gets a little more radiation, but not enough to really mention any more than just saying, yeah, he got a little more radiation. So that problem solved. He makes it back to the Rocinante relatively unscathed after just kind of going on a jog with weights on him, ostensibly, to solve the problems. So yay, that plot point's wrapped up. So now we've got Bobby, Meng, and Amos down on Io, and Bobby's going down there basically expecting to fight one of the soldiers, and she got her suit back in working order, and the Martians, after they took out the UN fleet and met up with the Rocinante and all that, they restocked the Rocinante, and also Holden asked for something for Bobby, which we learn later on is a machine gun for her and incendiary ammo for it. That'll help against the protomolecule soldiers. So she's got that. And so she's expecting to fight one and die in the process. But she's also been studying the film from the first chapter, the first battle, so that she can see like any possible weaknesses. And
she's a real gym rat. She gets in there, she's watching film, she's practicing, she's working really hard. She's got that deceptive athleticism.
Yeah, she's a real lunch pail kind of gal. First in, last out.
Not going to put up any flashy numbers, but this kind of person you want on your team.
So they make it down to the planet. They make it to the not the planet, rather, it's a moon. So they make it down to the moon and to the station. As they're going in to start hunting, Bobby realizes that her comms have gone down, which means that the protomolecule soldier is nearby, because that's a telltale sign of it. So she motions for Prax and Amos to go in without her and shut the door behind them so that she can deal with the protomolecule soldier. And she's able to see it despite it trying to be stealthy, and they fight, and it goes very good for her because she gets the upper hand until because what she thinks is that she just has to basically damage it enough until the failsafe incendiary bomb blows up inside of it, and she gets to that point. But because these things keep learning, it basically just rips a chunk of its chest out that has the bomb in it and throws it at her, and that disables her. So now she thinks she's going to die. But then in a really weird twist of fate, the thing is probing her and trying to get some goo through her armor so that it can infect her, because I guess it recognizes her power and is like, yeah, I'd like you to be one of us. That would be pretty rad. But she's got this giant power armor that's got, I guess, no gaps in it, at least not enough to make a difference for what it's trying to do. and that gives her enough time to get her arm working enough to where she can just unload the rest of her armor, so she can unload the rest of her ammo into its face, killing it. So she got her revenge, kind of. She killed one of the protomolecule soldiers, and yay! Now she's got a bunch of goo on her, though, so she gotta be careful. So that's ostensibly her plot line, her little plot point here wrapped up. So now Prax and Amos, they are going through, just running past scientists and receptionists and other people that are just like, oh my god, and then just like running away from them. We have Martians stationed outside ready to catch anybody that runs out, so they don't got to worry about watching their back or anything. And eventually they hear Strickland and the woman arguing, the woman from the beginning of the book that took May. And so they walk in, and I love how Amos just kind of like doesn't like give like any shits. He just kind of walks in and interrupts their conversation, like, "Hey, what you guys talking about?" And
it was something very funny. Like, they were like Strickland, or the artist formerly known as Strickland, was like, "Yeah, what if the intruders breach the base? What if they are here?" And then she says something, and then Amos comes around the corner and is like, "Yeah, what if?" You know.
Yeah.
It was a really nice moment for him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that'd be a real problem for you, wouldn't it, huh? But yeah, so Strickland immediately shoots the woman right in the face, and then he just pulls this bullshit where he's like, "Oh, thank God, I've been a victim. I've been good this whole time. I did everything in my power to protect the kids. I stalled them. They really. I'm just as much a victim as the kids." But thankfully, Amos doesn't buy that for a second. But we see May is indeed alive and okay. And he's like, "Oh, I kept her alive, but she was supposed to be in the second batch, but I took her off. I took all the kids off of it." And Amos is like, "Yeah, you did that because of Holden's video package." He's like, No. I did it because I'm a good guy." And then Amos blows his head off with a shotgun.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the auto shotgun is it's a really cool weapon. It's had some really cool moments in this book.
Yeah. So that's that problem solved. Which is nice.
Not a lot of prisoners being taken in this book.
No, not at all. So they got May. Everyone's basically dealt with, more or less. So let's get out of here. So they leave, and that's our main conflict basically wrapped. Like that's really it. Like, everybody survived. May's alive. Everything. Avasarala basically won. For what it's worth, she basically won. So now we have our falling action here for the rest of the book, where basically Avasarala gets Ehrenreit's job, and now she's going to ride with the Rocinante back to the moon, Earth's moon, I should clarify, so that she can go back to Earth and deal with the her new role and all the politics that entails. So yeah, they go to the moon, and there they have like this big kind of celebration, this feast. We kind of just have a couple character moments of the we did it, woo.
Some things that set up the next book as well. I think they explain a little bit of Avasarala's role. I think she essentially becomes. Is she like? The thing is, it's still a little nebulous what she exactly does. Is she like somehow both like the chief diplomat and like lead ambassador / foreign policy executive, essentially?
Yeah, she has a lot.
That's
of
kind of what I got from that.
Yeah, so yeah, she's got a lot of new job titles and whatnot. But I guess something that I should mention, I kind of jumped past this because it kind of like skipped through a lot of things. So how they were able to get the UN on their side, besides Avasarala contacting the Sergeant General, or I don't think is it Sergeant General? I don't remember.
I don't think that's what it was.
It may not be. It was something general. I don't know. He's like the basically the leader of the UN. That's all that really matters. Like she contacts him for one, but they also get like all the information they have, and she convinces Holden not to just pull a Holden and just broadcast it to everybody, but to send it to Souther, and that's how like that situation. That's how he like joins them with their ships and all that. But something that, the reason why I'm bringing this up is Holden being Holden. He kind of sneaks some of it. He sneaks that information to his mother, one of his mothers, on Earth, for her to hold on to, just in case something happens to him, and just in case Avasarala isn't quite as good as she appears to be. So he's got a contingency plan in place there, which understandable if I'm being perfectly honest here. So just keep that in mind for a second. So they make it back to the moon, to Earth's moon, and everything's all hunky dory. Everybody's happy, having a good time, parties, feasts, yay, woohoo. However, that's all kind of stopped all of a sudden because Avasarala gets a message that Fred Johnson in a what is ostensibly a political dick measuring contest has decided to shoot the all of the protomolecule soldiers that were, because they turned the transponder back on in order to find the protomolecule soldiers, but their plan was to shoot them as they got closer to Mars. But by closer, they mean like about a week of travel time out, to where they could take them out very easily, very safely, without any threat of missing or any threat to Mars at all. So that's how they were going to solve that crisis. But Fred Johnson just did it himself. He nuked them all in space the second he was able to, just to kind of as a, haha, look how much power the OPA has, fools. So Fred,
kind of based though.
Yeah, I mean it's Fred's still playing the game his own way, and we can't forget about it.
I think generally, I think it was the correct way. Better, I mean, because like think about if they had somehow failed to do that, there is no cost to the OPA essentially, but the fact that they did, they get to take credit for the disposal, and also it's just, I think it's just good practice to just dispose of these potentially civilization / species ending weapons. Essentially, just if you could just get rid of them as soon as possible, I kind of think that's the move.
Yeah. I could definitely see why it can be taken as a smart move on his part to have done that. But yeah, that's taken care of. But that pisses off Avasarala because, like I said, that's just kind of him just kind of flexing, being like, yeah, I can do this. What of it? So
I will say, and I do like Avasarala. But that is one of her, it's interesting to see. She is a creature of her circumstances, so she is very skeptical of the OPA, naturally.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because she kind of talks about the sort of like the colonial past of her, her ancestors in India. But she doesn't quite make the link between the way that the outer planets and all the space stations and mining facilities, they were under, if not the same, somewhat similar, like exploitative colonialist control by Earth, or I guess the UN rather, and Mars. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how that dynamic resolves as we move forward.
Yeah. But, however, something that happened, and we learned this again a little later on because of the lag time between Venus and the moon. But the second that Fred did that, it caused a chain reaction on Venus, because we've been told all book that they're linked. Venus is every time something happens with the protomolecule soldiers, Venus responds instantaneously, no lag time whatsoever. They're synchronized. So something's going on Venus every time this stuff happens. So something happens, and what it does is there are some ships in orbit on Venus still, and as I understand it, this like giant thing of like tentacles dissipates the fog around Venus's atmosphere and whips the ships away. Just backhands them out of the area.
Let me see if I can find it in the book.
Which I gotta say, that's pretty metal.
I'm trying to find it in the book. Do you remember where it was, roughly?
It was... I want to say the last Prax chapter.
Okay, here we go. I found it. The dark side of Venus pulsed like a sudden planetary flash of lightning under the obscuring clouds, and then it glowed. Vast filaments, thousands of kilometers long, like spokes on a wheel, lit white and vanished. The clouds of Venus shifted, disturbed from below. Prax had a powerful memory of seeing a wake on the surface of a water tank when a fish passed close underneath. Vast and glowing, it rose with the cloud cover. Spoke-like strands of iridescence arced with vast lightning storms, coming together like the arms of an octopus, but connected to a rigid central node. Once it had climbed out of Venus's thick cloud cover, it launched itself away from the sun toward the viewing ship, but passing it. The other ships in its path were scattered and hurled away. A long plume of displaced Venusian atmosphere caught the sun and glowed like snowflakes and slivers of ice. Prax tried to make sense of the scale. As large as Ceres Station, as large as Ganymede, larger. It folded its arms, its tentacles together, accelerating without any visible drive plume. It just swam in the void. His heart was racing, but his body was still as a stone.
Yeah.
That was pretty metal.
Yeah. Basically a giant protomolecule tentacle monster, some real Lovecraftian shit here. Just reached out of Venus and just knocked some ships away that were in orbit around it.
Yeah, that's gonna be a real problem.
Yeah.
To put it lightly.
And that's honestly kind of how the book ends, is like that. Well, like the main book, we have the epilogue left, but that's basically the end of it, is them seeing that, being like, oh no. And it's just like Bobby said earlier in the book. Mars and the UN are focusing so much on themselves, but the real issue is Venus. And what better way to see that firsthand than that? That's the true threat, at least possibly, as we understand it so far. I'm kind of wondering, because of the whole Miller thing, like how true that's going to be. But all the same, yikes, that's bad. So then we have, so then we just have the epilogue, basically. I guess I should say that there is a tentative peace once again between the UN and Mars.
I imagine it's gonna go the same way it has in the past. Like the next book, they're probably going to be like at odds again, and then they're going to come together more or less at the end. Yeah. I feel like that's going to happen. How many books are in this series?
There are 9.
There are 9?
There are 9. Yes.
Wow, that's 3 more than I was expecting. Okay, I think that's gonna happen until at least book 6. They're going to be coming together and coming apart. Eventually, they're going to maybe starting around book 4 or 5. There's going to be like a major, just total breakdown, rupture. Maybe because they've kind of been like towing this line of like open hostilities. There may be like an actual shooting war at one point, and then something crazy is going to happen, and then you're going to be like, okay, now we're going to have to seriously just stop and work together on this. I think that's going to be, they're going to continue to kind of tease that plot for a little bit longer.
Yeah. You basically just described like a 2 expansion cycle for World of Warcraft since like forever. It's like the Horde and Alliance team up to face the big bad of this expansion, but then the next expansion, no, they're at war again. Oh goodness me. Oh, but you know what? It was just a big misunderstanding, but this dude was really evil, so it's fine. We're just get rid of him. Now we're good again. This is the Horde. we're at peace again. But oh, just in time. Look, there's this really big bad guy that we gotta take care of. Oh, we took care of him anyways. We're evil again. We just committed literal genocide against one of the Alliance races. Oh no, it was just because that person was evil. It's fine. We're good again. Look at this big bad we gotta take out together. That's quite literally how World of Warcraft's been going for like 20 years now.
I think that's gonna be that's gonna be what happens. Like that's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, and yet I still play it. I enjoy it.
If it's if it's enjoyable enough, you can get away with stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, so all we have left in this now is the epilogue, and it's just Holden watching the footage of what happened on Venus over and over again until he is interrupted by Detective Miller. And he's like, "Hey, we gotta talk." And that's the end. And I'm just so... Oh, man, I'm so excited for Abaddon's Gate, man. Oh, he's back. He's back. I want to know why and how. But I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's very interesting. They let me consult the book again just real quick. Just want to describe Miller as he appears here. Holden turned reluctantly away from the image on the screen. The man stood next to the galley refrigerator as if he had always been there. Rumpled gray suit and dented pork pie hat. A bright blue firefly flew off his cheek, then hung in the air beside him. He waved it away like it was a gnat. His expression was one of discomfort and apology. "Hey," Detective Miller said, "we gotta talk." I didn't remember the bit about the pork pie hat. That seemed a little bit out of place in the distant future.
That's the hat he wore in Leviathan Wakes.
I guess I just didn't remember it.
Yeah, he always had that hat on.
Huh. I guess I just didn't remember. But that kind of goes with his theme though in the last book, where it was like like a semi-noir kind of feel for the solo Miller chapters, especially early on, before he met up with Holden.
Yeah, but oh man, I have so many questions about his reappearance.
Well, I feel like they didn't quite tease it exactly. Well, maybe like in the most oblique of ways. But do you remember when? Oh, we need to talk about this. Jules Mao, when he was...
oh, yeah, we forgot about that completely.
When he was being, not interrogated, but interviewed at the beginning of the book. And Avasarala mentions, "Have you been in contact with your daughter?" And Mao kind of dodges the question a little bit and says, like, "How is that possible? My daughter was on Arrow Station." So maybe Avasarala knows a little more than she's let on to this point. And maybe there's something, because they're like they've said, they've detected activity anytime anything related to like protomolecule based combat, I guess, or anything related to the protomolecules occurs. They're detecting activity. Maybe they've detected other kind of activity that I don't know. It's just I'm very curious about how that all is playing out. How Miller as a distinct entity is arriving here. They kind of mention, it's similar to how they described Julie towards the end of Leviathan Wakes. So yeah. I wonder if there's like some sort of, I don't want to say good proto-molecule, but I just there's something very different about the way that it is affected Julie and Miller versus how it's affecting like 99.999% of other people it has come in contact with in this series. I'd like to know like what's going on there.
You know what scares me? I'm worried that they're gonna pull a whole like, I'm not actually him. I am the protomolecule. I'm just coming to you in a form that you would be comfortable with, and I have his memories, but I'm not him.
That is a distinct possibility. But here's the thing. I'm not going to crack the book back open, but you know how it said the face of the look of discomfort and apology?
Yeah.
I feel like that represents some sort of like more that's a more human touch than I think the protomolecule would probably be aware to like. Let's say the protomolecule under that auspice there is kind of like, for lack of a better word, split into factions, and there's like a quote unquote good protomolecule and a bad protomolecule, and the good protomolecule is like, hey humans, there's a real problem here, and this is what you can do in that circumstance. I still think that it would be alien enough that it would probably not think to like acknowledge the awkwardness of the situation and the potential fear the situation could cause.
Yeah.
At least in my opinion. So I would like to think, not knowing anything further, that this is the character of Miller. Obviously, he's going to be different in some way, but I feel like it is the same character.
Yeah, I hope so. That is what I'm really, really hoping is going to happen. It's just, I know sometimes that happens in stories where characters come back seemingly from the dead, and they're just like, yeah, well, like a more recent example is Stephen Lang's character in Avatar 2. This is like a minor spoiler for the first like 15 minutes of the movie. Yeah, he dies at the end of the first movie, and now he's an avatar in the second one, and it's like, oh yeah, because conveniently it's like, oh here's a video that he made before he went out and got killed at the end of the first movie, and he's like, oh yeah, hey, they're making me record this, they're taking my DNA so that they can just upload me into an avatar if need be, if something happens to me. And it's like, yeah,
they made me into a dang app.
Yeah, basically. And they're like, yep, you got his memories, but you're not, and his experiences, but you're technically a different thing entirely. You're a new person, but you just have the memories of this dead guy. So like, it happens, like they do that. So
they made me into a dang app. I don't know why. There's just that phrase has popped into my mind. It's just. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. I forgot. We should talk about what happens to Jules Mao. I totally forgot to talk about that. So he was responsible for like the UN that was working on the protomolecule monsters. They were working with Jules Mao. So he was lying to Avasarala when she talked to him earlier, when she was like, "Have you talked to your daughter?" And she even told him, she's like, hey, if I find out that you're lying to me, basically you're gonna regret this. And since all this came out after all this happened, he's now been arrested because he's now culpable for everything that's happened. So yeah, and Avasarala is going to do like an interrogation of him, and Holden's like, hey, can I come? And she's like, you were there when the president of Protogen got shot in the head by Miller. Absolutely, you can be there. And so Holden's there for the interrogation, and he sees Mao first as he's being brought into the area, into the building by MPs. And I love how there's like this bit where Holden's like basically just kind of playing games with him. He's just like he's like, I was there when I forgot the dude's name, the Protogen guy. It's like, I was there when he was killed, and I'm here when you're being taken in, and I just want to know why'd you do this? Like, why did
was it worth it?
Yeah, was it worth it? You lost your daughter, you lost everything. Was it worth it? And
it was Dresden, by the way.
Dresden, okay, thank you. So during this is so great too. This is such a great power move. So when Avasarala gets there and they're in the interrogation room, Holden's sitting in the back, and he's there in an unofficial capacity, so that he thinks that the record won't reflect that he was ever there to begin with. And he's sitting there just kind of in the back in the corner, and the first thing Avasarala does is she starts having a conversation with Holden. She's like, hey, you got paid for transporting me back to the moon, right? And he's like, yep, we're good. And she's just having just a casual conversation with him. And Jules Mao is just like, He's basically like, you realize I'm right here, right? Like I'm right here. Like what you're ignoring me. Why are you ignoring me? And she's just like,
let's get down to brass tacks, Mouse. And I can no. Officer Alla interrupted. Yeah, that's basically, he just gets immediately, that sets the tone. He's immediately verbally slapped down.
Yeah. And so basically the point of this whole thing is, it's just her she's just telling him, you failed. You lied to me. You didn't help me when I told you that all I want is your help. So now I'm going to destroy your legacy, and you're gonna watch me do it. And Holden notices that is what kind of hit him in the heart, and he would have preferred being shot in the head like Dresden did, because the worst thing that could happen to a man with power and influence is him losing his legacy. That's the final death, so to say. And Officer Alla is making sure that it happens before his physical death. And it's like, man, this dude deserves to die for the bullshit that he's pulled. But, like, I got to agree with Officer Alla here. This is much sweeter.
The one thing your hole will have is 24-hour news. And since you and I will never meet again, I want to make sure my name is on your mind every time I destroy something else you left behind. I am going to erase you. Mao stared back defiantly, but Holden could see he was just a shell. Officer Alla had known exactly where to hit him, because men like him lived for their legacy. They saw themselves as the architects of the future. What Officer Alla was promising was worse than death.
Yep. I love it. She just completely ruined him. And he so deserves it, man.
It's just nice. I will say one of the things that is seemingly most outlandish, even beyond the proto-molecule or the space travel, the most outlandish thing to me is like a corporate executive actually being arrested and doing hard time for their crimes.
Yeah.
That is like unbelievable, but also incredibly cathartic.
Well, to be fair, he is responsible for something that will potentially eliminate humankind as we know it.
That's true. And the one and only rule is don't mess up the money.
Yeah.
That would really mess up the money. So
yeah.
Maybe less cathartic when I think about it, but still, it was very nice to see someone like him get just totally destroyed, slapped down, and forced to actually make some sort of restitution to society. Yeah.
Which, I mean, I feel like there's a possibility. We've said that this may not be what his title is, but I'm just going to keep saying it anyways. I feel like there's a distinct possibility that the Sergeant General has been aware of all of this to begin with. It's possible he doesn't. He could just be a figurehead. But, like, the reason why everybody started working with Officer Alla here in the end was because they knew that basically this whole thing was a failure, and they all, I mean, even Aaron Wright, he's the one responsible for all of this, and the only punishment he receives is he's forced to retire. That's it. And Officer Alla takes his position. They make Wynn the fall guy. Like, he's the one that was behind everything. He's the one that takes all the responsibility. He's the one that died for it. All this. So it's like all the people that were truly responsible with it for this, except for Jules Mao, got away with it.
Yeah. That might resurface later.
Just like Jules Mao did in this one. So it's not even that it's like, the good guys won. I mean, the good guys technically won, but the only reason why the good guys won is it became now inconvenient for the bad guys to continue being bad in this particular case.
That's true.
So it's almost kind of like a Pyrrhic victory of sorts.
Not really.
Well,
because the good guys didn't lose anything.
Yeah, that's true. It's not really a Pyrrhic victory. It's not really hollow either. It's a bittersweet, maybe the better.
There we go. It's an incomplete victory, but it was a victory nonetheless.
Yeah. So yeah, forgot to mention that a little bit. That's a little important. But now I think we've just about rounded out this book.
Yeah, the only thing after that part in the book is the
dinner party.
The ghost, the protomolecule ghost of Miller appearing. So, there is one other thing. Do you want to talk about the wrap up to the Holden Naomi sequence?
Yeah, that's right. I even said, keep this in your mind with talking about his mom. Probably should mention this too. yeah, so Holden's his parents, all however many of them, they're gonna come up and meet Naomi, despite the fact that they're a little racist against Belters.
They're space racist.
Yeah, they're super space racist. Which, like, the way that he explains it, it is kind of
That's not a joke, by the way. They're like, they have a distinct prejudice against people that were born in in space.
Yeah,
like the Belters.
but like the way that he explains it, it does make them sound like victims of the propaganda machine more so than malicious bigots. So
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I'm willing to.
That is true, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of people that you could say that about that now that are, maybe not bad people otherwise, but they have somewhat bad views on race or gender or sexuality or anything like that. They're while these ideas may be hegemonic, it is nevertheless within the realm of, I would say, not just possibility, but of responsibility to kind of, work through these culturally ingrained biases.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of Holden bringing them to meet Naomi. The reason why is he wants them to see that Belters aren't this boogeyman that they've been led to believe they are. So he's like, I want you to come and meet her because I know that you will love her, and he's thinking, they'll see that they've not necessarily, I mean, they've been lied to for sure, but like that their prejudices are unfounded once they meet Naomi, once they get to know her, and once they understand that that's the woman that he loves, and they'll see that she's really not any different than them. She was just born on not on a different planet if she was born on a station, but she was just born in a different part of the solar system. It's it's no different than like a family in our current society than a family that was just basically made to believe that this particular ethnicity is always bad and always evil, but then one of their child starts dating a member of that ethnicity, of that ethnic group, and then when the family meets that person, they realize that their prejudices have been unfounded and they grow as people. It happens. It really does happen.
He's essentially going to do Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but sci-fi.
Yeah. So I really like that about Holden. He's
I'm not saying that it's a bad idea I'm just saying that generally speaking, I think I'm not willing to let them off the hook yet. I mean, maybe they'll learn and grow.
Yeah.
But like right now, I'm like, that's not cool.
This is more so me giving a credit to Holden rather than a credit to his parents.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love how he talks to Naomi about it, and what he says is, "My parents are racists." That quote. That's the actual quote. He says, "My parents are," or maybe "My mom is racist." I don't remember which one it is. But
I think he said parents.
Yeah, but I love how that's how he explains it to her. He's just like, "Yeah, they're racists. That's just kind of, it's who they are." But hopefully they'll see the reality of the situation and learn to love Naomi, and by proxy not be racist. So I don't know, maybe we'll see, maybe we won't. This is the first time they've really kind of become characters in the story directly and not just him mentioning them offhand.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
It'll be interesting. I will just a last little thing to mention. There's also been, as part of my my critique that the Holden Naomi relationship might be a little rushed. There is also so not only have they're back together, but they're like talking about like getting married, and of course when you are talking about getting married, you talk about things like having kids. It's interesting because Naomi seems to be very against having kids, and Holden seems to want kids, and so that's a fact that his mother actually kind of mentions in his conversation with her, introducing the idea of bringing Naomi to or having them meet Naomi on the moon, because I guess the Belters, they're like the high gravity, they would need to acclimate. They can't just like go straight onto the Earth. Anyway, all that to say, I think that's there may be. I don't want to say dark clouds on the horizon because I mean this book has shown that they're pretty much dead set on this pairing, and there may be flare ups, but I think that's something to. They're ultimately going to be together. But all that to say, that might be something to watch in the next book to see if there's like a what the next challenge in the Holden Naomi relationship will be.
Yeah. But like one last thing too, that's important to mention. So he sent her that video package that Avasarala made to send to Souther to get them, and she was like, "Don't send it out in the open. Don't pull a James Holden here. We're doing this the right way." So he's like, "Oh, hey, also by the way, that that thing I sent you, go ahead and keep a hold of it. I might need it in the future." So, uh-oh.
Yeah, I guess we will see how that goes. That was one of the situations where I'm like, Holden, I don't really know how I feel about this. I feel like he's, his heart is. They tell us his heart is in the right place, but his judgment is not always the best. I guess we will see how that goes. That does seem to be a bit of a Chekhov's gun. I guess we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, but something's got to give with that eventually, I'm sure. But I guess, yeah, we will see.
And with that, I think we're good. Are there any other little points we need to resolve? I think that's it.
I think that, yeah, I feel like we finally kind of rounded out everything we need to.
Yeah. Well,
woo.
With that, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, just kind of getting back to it again. This series is great. I'm really enjoying it. It's so much fun. It's very, very entertaining. I really love it. It's great. 9 out of 10.
This book, I don't really have anything. I think I went through all of my thoughts at the beginning, and after discussing it, there's not really anything new that I've newly synthesized ideas here. But just to kind of reiterate, this was good. Great book. I really enjoyed it. I think there was a lot of interesting plot and stuff. The characters, I think, characters that I didn't like the first go around got a little bit stronger this time. Here's one thing. There's a little bit more Alex, and there was a little bit of a dynamic. I don't think we mentioned it, but actually we did. There was the burgeoning friendly dynamic between Alex and Bobby. I don't know if Bobby's going to be in it moving forward as a POV character. I could see her definitely coming back as like a recurring character kind of situation, but I'm not convinced she will return as a POV character.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I did enjoy her interactions with Alex. It was just nice to see Alex being an actual character, more beyond 5 minutes to the evac point, boss kind of character.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get to see a little bit more of him, and maybe of her in subsequent books.
Yeah. Really great expansion of the pre-existing characters in this.
Yeah. Oh, and I mentioned this before. It's great to see Amos kind of transition also from a similar but not the same role of whatever you say, boss. The heavy kind of guy to he still mostly played that role, but he also has like you see hints of like his past, whereas like his great tenderness for children. And I think that's why, especially he reacted so forcefully and vengefully against Strickland. And I think it's just like there's a lot of there may be some sort of unresolved like issues related to his early life, and I think that's something that Officer Ralla mentions. Like she mentions having dossiers pulled for each of these people, and there's like little tidbits about their past, and I think it was something like he was investigated for like 12 murders or some amount of murders, but never convicted. That kind of. So yeah. I think there's a little interesting past stuff there. Here's the one little last bit while we're thinking about Alex. There was like something like he has a kid out there somewhere, but he doesn't know.
Scotty doesn't.
So that's kind of interesting. What?
Scotty doesn't know.
He's going to. So I wonder if that might come around at some point.
It has to. You wouldn't mention that without it being a thing.
Yeah, I think maybe, especially there's going, if my theory about the UN and Mars having a hot war scenario, maybe some of the crew has to separate. Maybe he has to go back to Mars for some reason, and maybe he meets his son. Maybe that's a thing. I don't know. I guess we will see.
I don't remember if this was ever brought up in Leviathan Wakes, but it's mentioned in this book because of the conversation that Amos and Holden have about the possibility of Bobby and Alex getting together. We learned that Alex is in his like early to mid 50s.
Yeah, that's something that kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, I thought he would. I would have guessed like 30s at the oldest.
I thought they were all in their 30s essentially. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah, me too. So he's much older than I thought.
I think after having read this book, if I had to guess, I would say, Alex, obviously they mention is in his early to mid 50s. Amos, I'm going to guess, is probably a little older than the rest, like late 30s, early 40s. And Holden and Naomi are like in the like 31 to 34 range, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I would have guessed Amos was the oldest by far, but it's possible that's not the case.
I mean, they obviously in this world, people seem to be more long-lived than they are currently. So I don't know if like 60 is more like 40, but nevertheless, that's the vibe I get.
Yeah, I mean, Avasarala, she's pretty old. Like at least I would guess at least 70s. And she does make a comment saying that her doctor said she's got at least 30 years left.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think they're a little bit more, and she's a little bit more with it than most politicians that are in their 70s and 80s that we see in the current time. So maybe there's a little bit of a difference.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that, I think that wraps up all the stuff I want to talk about for this book. I very much enjoyed it. I'm very glad that I decided, when we were talking about this, I was thinking about it, and I would never really considered vetoing it. But when you mentioned it, I was like, do I really want to do this? And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And I am very, very glad I did. Very excited to see where we end up in Abaddon's Gate.
Yep, me too.
All right, well, thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Sad Boys Book Club. We will see you next time with a new book.
Yep, take care.